Tributes continue to pour in for former Finance Minister and Reserve Bank Governor Tito Mboweni. He passed away last night to the age of 65 following a short illness. President Cyril Ramaphosa has hailed Mboweni for his contribution to the country's economic policy and his fiscal discipline.
As Governor and Finance Minister, he had a sharp focus on fiscal discipline and economic transformation. Tito Mboweni distinguished himself in different strategic roles in the private sector and was a flag bearer in global forums of our economy and developing economies more broadly. He conducted himself with expert rigor while maintaining the personable touch that made him a social media star and ambassador for Mojaji's Kloof culinary traditions.
Former International Relations Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor has remembered Mboweni as a pioneer in South African labour-related matters.
My sense of him was that he always had a very well-attuned sense of what needs to be done for our nation. We should remember that he is the person who developed the framework that gave life to the labor rights in the Bill of Rights of our Constitution. And he had a strong attachment to the trade union movement at that time, and matters such as the right to strike, procedures related to employment, to retrenchment, to dismissal, to many issues were addressed during his time. So there's a legacy that Tito Mboweni has left for South Africa. And then, of course, his careful management of the economy, the work he did as a governor. He was a man of, I think, many talents and executed them with precision and due attention to national interest.
We continue our reflections on the passing of Mboweni, and we speak now to Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Mondli Gungubele. Deputy Minister, thanks so much for speaking to us this afternoon. I suppose first port of call would be our sincerest condolences on the passing of one of your colleagues. What comes to mind when you think about Tito Mboweni?
Thank you. Thank you, Hugo, and your viewership and the opportunity. Of course, let me take this opportunity to extend my condolences to the family of Comrade Tito, to the family of Blood family and the ANC family and the country as a whole, because as far as I'm concerned, the country viewed him as an asset, and please allow me to extend those condolences. Remember, Hugo, I worked with Tito in many ways. I interfaced with him when I was a shop steward and in the NUM, when he was busy developing the labor rights bill, which got to the framework on how actually to work, that determined the framework between how employers and employees would relate and make sure that there's stable industrial environment, there's productivity, where interest of all groups, be it employer and employee, are properly addressed. The progressive labor laws that we speak about today were led by Comrade Tito. I also had an opportunity to work with him as his deputy minister in 2018. Very precise, good in precision, and he understood the critical environment for the realization of the revolutionary goals. Comrade Tito understands the importance of legality, the importance of good governance, issues of efficiency, and a government that is attached to people. I remember very well how he was affected by the Guyana water and the water in the Val. He was part of the intervention that actually was consulting with soldiers and also made a strong noise about the Guyana project, which was not moving. He always had that feeling about a government that must stay attached to the people, that must be at the service of the people. He was quite a character, I can tell you. He hated being woken up in the morning. He worked overnight. If you wanted to fight with him, you call him at about 6 or 7 a.m. But at times I had to do that because the work so required. He also had a problem about a cynical view towards the digital technology. He was very much in love with the modern technology. At times, he would be angry that we in the department would call meetings that would take place in the office when we could have connected with him whilst he's in Makhubas Kloof. So he was fighting for digital technology, even documentation. He preferred paperless protocol environment. So those are the things we had to clash with him about. I remember I had to tell him that you have to sign the memos that are hard copies, because the digital reality that you speak about is not with us now, but yet there's a content in the memo which need to be progressed. So he was quite a character, but a dedicated, clear-minded, politically clear individual, understood that the revolutionary goals would only be achieved in an environment that was orderly, legally, and well-governed.
Interesting that you talk about his love for digital technology. Now you're Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. And you talk about him being quite a character, and I particularly enjoyed his interface with the public, particularly on X, formerly Twitter.
Yes.
You know, so whether he was cooking in his home or sharing any other elements of his life, he wasn't afraid to do that.
He always found a way of being in a continuous interactive mode with the society at large. In my view, Twitter was one of the way he wanted to stay in touch with the people out there. Of course, he would very provocative, come with ideas that got challenged, of course, different recipes with his apron on. He is leaving a big gap, a yawning gap. He will be highly missed, because closing that gap, taking into account the kind of character he was, is going to be very difficult.
Now, in what ways do you feel he played a role of mentor, not maybe just to you, but other colleagues in government and in the ANC?
He was very candid in terms of ensuring that, one, ANC stays within the legal framework, ANC stays within its prescripts. He was also very candid in ensuring that government understand that when you spend, there's something called fiscal sustainability. You need to remain as a government that can be relied upon in as far as being a credible debtor. In other words, he ensured that the country remained credit-worthy through a fiscally well-managed program. So the fiscal frameworks, those are the things he never played games with this. Of course, being a new deputy minister in the finance area, I learned a lot under his leadership, even myself. And I want to argue, in as far as understanding the economic environment and the key of that macroeconomic element called fiscal framework, I'm no longer the same since I work with him.
Deputy Minister, before I let you go, I'm just going to read a tweet from President Paul Kagame, and he says, and I paraphrase, obviously he offers his deepest condolences to the family and friends of Tito Mboweni and to the President Ramaphosa and the government of and the people of South Africa. He goes on to say Tito Mboweni was a giant voice for Africa and a champion of continental integration. His counsel was invaluable in the effort of reforming the African Union. Let's just talk about his impact. Obviously, we've talked about his impact on your life, on government officials, those he worked with in the African National Congress. But what about the continent and further afield?
Remember, as a deputy minister, when Tito came in, he took over from Minister Nhlanhla, who would have deployed me to actually coordinate the African perspective. And his interest in what I was doing, his guidance and his counseling on how critical the cohesion there at the African continent was, how critical that South Africa must never drop the ball in terms of contributing in as far as good governance is concerned. Tito loved good governance, and he knew that there's a relationship between effective delivery and good governance. They are two sides of the same coin.
Now, just finally, do you think he's handed the baton on to anybody in government or in the ANC? I mean, we talk about good governance, but we also juxtapose that around the numerous cases around misgovernance in many parts of the country.
Well, you would not attribute that to him as an individual. Tito worked with a collective where he made his views very clear. In my view, those who took over from him have not actually reversed things, have not regressed. Since the minister currently took over, our fiscal, what we call performance, is even getting better as we move forward. So, and that involves all the managers who worked under him, even those who got appointed to work in the BRICS space. All those are people, since he left, never looked back. What he left, they built on it and they move forward. Our fiscal environment, as far as I'm concerned, has continued to actually move in the positive direction since he left. Of course, he made his very important contribution, but he didn't do it as an individual. He had a collective, and working with the president, who was also very conscious and appreciated the nature of the environment he was pursuing.
Deputy Minister, thanks for your time this afternoon. We'll leave that conversation with Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Mondli Gungubele, as we continue to unpack and remember the untimely passing of former Minister and Reserve Bank Governor Tito Mboweni.